I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is a molecular biologist, science communicator, as well as an author too, no other than Mr. Dalton Sizemore. Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Dalton. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Absolutely. My name is Dalton Sizemore, and I am, like you said, a science communicator, a molecular biologist by training, and also communicate a lot when it comes to caregiving, as well as some psychological inputs as well from my personal life and some of the training that I received there.
Mr. Dalton Sizemore, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. And let's talk about your two books, In the Beginning and What the Kids See. What inspired you to breed scientific inquiry and faith in the beginning?
Yeah, so in the beginning is specifically going over a lot of struggles that I had throughout graduate school and undergrad as well. So I was raised in a pretty religious household where we went to church 3 times a week. And when I decided to go into biology, there was a lot of struggle and a lot of issue there, kind of the two dynamics, the two worlds colliding, right? The world of religion and the world of science. And for many years, at least the entirety of my undergraduate studies, I really struggled with kind of pairing the things that I believed, that I learned in church or learned in home growing up, with the things that I was studying and the things that I was being taught. And kind of later on in graduate school, and as I continued to work, it more or less kind of started coming together and harmonizing. I found that there was a very good harmonizing of science and religion instead of this kind of dichotomous battle that's always set up. So, in the beginning, goes over a lot of places where science and religion actually overlap, and really helps folks that are struggling, or I hope helps folks that are struggling with the science versus religion debate, kind of blend those two together, and understand that they truly do harmonize instead of being polar opposites of each other.
Polar opposite. What a word, Mr. Dalton. And how does your scientific background shape your approach to theological questions?
Yeah, so scientifically, you're looking at facts that are derived experimentally. So you're looking at kind of the hardcore evidence, right, that's put on the table. Theologically, you're looking at a system of beliefs based off of, a religious text, whether it be the Bible or, other religions using other texts. The scientific background really helps aid in solidifying a lot of my theologic beliefs, whether it be about creation or all the way down to how DNA is the makeup of life. And in the Bible, you can find areas where it talks about God breathing the life into everything. And so you can start to see how all things are interrelated and all things work together.
Interesting indeed, Mr. Dalton. And what protective mechanisms do children develop in toxic homes that we misunderstood?
Yeah, so that's the second book there, kind of the what the kids see growing up in a toxic home. That book explores a lot from a trauma informed perspective, understanding that domestic violence or domestic partner violence is really not just involving of the two individuals that are in the relationship, but also really involves the kids as well. So some of the protective things that you see from kids are coping skills, whether it be completely shutting the world out. They may find that an easier way to deal with their world and their life instead of facing what's happening. You can also see a lot of kids with external behaviors, whether it's talking too much or acting out in school. Those can be outlets for the kids to express feelings that they're not allowed to express at home.
Hmm, indeed. And what common misconception about science faith conflict would you most like to correct?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing there is that they're not complete opposites of each other, that they truly do overlap. And I think one of the issues that we see a lot are folks that are in the scientific world tend to disregard a lot of things that are kind of in that theological realm. And then folks that are in the theological realm tend to not fully understand a lot that's going on in the science realm or kind of understand the processes behind what's going on. So what I really try to do in the beginning book is show that the basis of the knowledge for a lot of the things that we explore theologically, showing the scientific basis for that knowledge, and then connecting that knowledge scientifically into a theologic understanding so that it fits in with the narrative that we're taught growing up for those of us that grow up in a Christian home.
What does trauma reshape a child's perception of a safety and authority figures?
Yeah, so trauma can do a drastic amount of reshaping to a child's understanding of the world. Um, you know, authority figures at home, of course, are typically the parents. So let's say that there's a domestic violence situation between mom and dad at home, where dad is always lashing out at mom and probably lashing out at kids as well because of a lot of stress or whatever triggers may happen there. If the child at home is getting lashed out at for having basic questions or basic uh, learning processes, let's say, then the child would really turn to another adult, usually their teacher, or if the school has a social worker or a counselor, to kind of reinforce that authority figure. And so what we see a lot of times is, one parent is the abuser, the other parent is the abused. The abused parent maybe doesn't have the ability because of the trauma that they're going through to really offer the child support. So the child will turn to someone else in the family or someone else that they may see very often, which is very often a teacher.
And Mr. Dalton, what invisible wounds from toxic homes most frequently persist into adulthood?
Yeah, so invisible wounds that are going to persist into adulthood are going to be really having that trust relationship with anyone that they come across, especially those that they may want to be in a romantic relationship with. So it's going to activate the child's constant fight or flight abilities. So the child's always, or the child as they grow into an adult, they're always going to be on the lookout for problems. If a problem arises, they're always going to want to either fight or flight, whether that's run away from the moment, or they can start to exhibit some of the behaviors that they actually saw growing up, which is another invisible wound of growing up in a toxic home, is that unfortunately a lot of folks that grow up in these circumstances tend to turn over and repeat those circumstances again when they get older, inflicting additional trauma onto their children and partners as well.
Mr. Dalton, let's talk about the thematic connections between both books. How does your work with a childhood trauma inform your understanding of existential questions?
Yeah, so I think, you know, the books, while they're kind of opposite in what they cover, or not opposite, but they're very different in what they cover, there are questions that both science and religion can ask of determining a trauma-informed approach to dealing with children, whether it's folks that have these large theological questions, hoping to talk to folks that are in trauma situations or from trauma backgrounds. There's a lot that can be learned from a trauma informed perspective to help folks that come from those backgrounds. Other than that, there's not a whole lot of overlap between the two books.
And Mr. Dalton, in what ways do both books explore different facets of truth seeking?
Yeah, so in the beginning, really is like it says in the title, is a quest for the truth, where the truth is a harmonizing, a blend of both science and faith. What the kids see growing up in a toxic home seeks the truth to be what can be best done for the children, or what children are truly going through in that home environment. A lot of times, I don't think that a lot of people realize just how much witnessing a domestic violence partnership, or witnessing an abusive parent, or having an abusive parent, can truly do to an individual. So that helps bring a lot of that thought and that understanding into light.
Mr. Dalton, how might early trauma affect someone's later ability to reconcile science and faith?
You know, that's an interesting question. I think folks that go through trauma, like I said earlier, they can either turn to an inward kind of closing of themselves, or they can turn to an external kind of showing behaviors or combative type of personality. Um, when it comes to, I guess, understanding or grasping certain concepts, I would think that the folks that tend to turn internal tend to focus their time on more creative abilities and learning abilities, so that you'll see things like individuals who excel on tests or excel in school. That actually may be a symptom of a toxic home environment. Of course, that's combined with several other things that I talk about in the book. But those folks may seek out those intellectual questions or those theological questions. On the other hand, folks that may become extremely argumentative may kind of bear down into their situation, and only accept that their perspective of the truth is true, and dig in and fight for what they believe in, right or wrong, without regard to what others may think.
Let's talk about the personal journey, Mr. Dalton. What personal experiences motivate you to write those two very different books.
Yeah, so in the beginning, was that kind of nagging question for me between science and faith. So, like I said, I grew up in church. And when I would go to church and everyone knew that I was in biology, I was majoring in biology, I was learning different aspects of biology, and I would be constantly kind of plagued on that end by folks that would misunderstand the theory of evolution or believe that certain things were true or false without having truly looked into them. And on the opposite side, though to a lesser degree, the scientific side, when I would express that I was a Christian and that I was really looking at these questions of evolution or these questions of science from a complete holistic perspective, I would also get I don't know that ridiculed is the right word, but there would be some, I guess, low level forms of ridicule there as well. And really, kind of those two things combating at each other constantly was very difficult in kind of those college formative years of trying to determine who you are as a person. Um, that was a struggle that I had quite a bit. So that's kind of what led me that struggle and the desire to help people that are also in that struggle is what led me to write in the beginning. What the kids see actually is a little bit of a deeper personal story. So I grew up in a household where my parents were actually split up before I was born. My mom would actually go on to have two other relationships, both of which were pretty abusive. One that I witnessed when I was a child of about 5 to 8 years old, and then the other that I witnessed when I was about 17, 18, 19 years old, somewhere in there. So it delves into a lot of clinical aspects of what kids see and how that affect them in the long term. But there is a whole section of the book that kind of walks folks through small stories of people that have been through trauma or are going through trauma, how it affects their everyday lives and how it affects their ongoing lives as they continue to grow up. And that's kind of a personal reflection as well, um, based off of my past history.
Mr. Dalton, as a molecular biologist, science communicator, as well as an author, what are your short term and long term goals?
Yeah, so short-term goals is continue working on some projects that really talk about subjects that people aren't intimately aware of, I would say. Getting some science knowledge out into the general public. I think folks right now we're in a time where folks are very skeptical of scientists, and scientists are very skeptical of the public. Scientists have not really done a lot to help their public image, especially in the time of COVID. And I think if we could truly get the general public to understand what we're talking about and not just talk over their heads or talk at them, then we would have a much better time achieving much better things than what we're currently achieving. Also, kind of long-term goals is really want to help people that are in different situations. And I guess that's kind of a key message of these two books, whether it's helping people that are struggling with who they are between the science and the religion world, or helping parents, helping individuals who have been through abusive situations as children, teachers, other folks understand what kids really go through when they live in a toxic home, whether they're being physically abused or not, they're seeing the abuse, the emotional turmoil, the mental anguish, and seeing the things that stick with them over time. So really helping people is the long term goal for sure.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Dalton, and looking forward for more success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there want to be like you?
Just go for it. I think for a long time, I held myself back in a lot of different ways from being able to really explore both who I was as a person, and then also holding myself back from achieving my full potential. So the first step is the hardest, but and sometimes you have to be forced to take that first step. But definitely go for it and see where it takes you. The journey can be quite fun along the way.
Thank you for that advice, Mr. Dalton. And can you please recommend the books or books that influence your journey?
Yeah, so there's a lot of books out there that I could recommend that would influence my journey. I think the one that and I'm the title's skipping my name right now, so I'm gonna look it up real quick here. Um, but the one that really influenced things for me was a book talking about religion and here it is, a book by Francis Collins called The Language of God. And he's a geneticist. And he really talks about the relationship with science and faith. And he was the one that actually helped completely encode the human genome. So he really approaches it from a standpoint of using DNA as a metaphor of God's handiwork in nature. So that's a really good book that I would recommend to everyone.
Thank you for that recommended book, Mr. Dalton. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in 5th season, abstract poetry in 2nd season, and my book 101 review in 5th season too, comedy 101 in 2nd season, and my food 101 in 5th season as well, geography 101 in 4th season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and mental health 101, love letters in 3rd season, and movie 101 review and music 101 in 4th season, and science 101 and sex 101 in its 1st season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Dalton, if you could have everyone take one lesson from both books combined, what would it be?
That there are people out there that are just like you, struggling in the same situations that you are, and reaching out to them could really help you in the end.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Dalton Sizemore. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please
Absolutely.
invite our listeners to support your business, your projects, or your book itself, or books itself?
Thank you.
So where do people buy your books, Mr. Dalton?
Yeah, so that you can find both of them right now on my website, which is daltonsizemore.com. And then here in the next few months, you'll see them popping up on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and several independent bookstores as well.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Dalton Sizemore, because if you support him, for sure, more and more and more empowering books like this to come. More and more empowering advocacy to come. So, Mr. Dalton, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.